Hello, dear listeners. Today's episode is on a concise Chinese English dictionary for lovers by Xiaolu Guo from 2007. This book takes the form of a diary written by a Chinese student who has immigrated to London to learn English. It's got a pretty remarkable form, and that it's written in what we might call broken English, although, as we discussed in this episode, that's not the best name for it. But it's an English which gets steadily more developed and nuanced as the main character completes her language education. It also, in parallel, tells the story of a May-December romance as the protagonist falls in love with a sculptor who is 20 years her senior, and in every way has kind of the opposite values that she does. And the novel uses this relationship and the narrator's increasing grasp of English language and customs to tell a story of cross-cultural difference, heightened value systems, and a kind of Kunstroman, or the story of the development of an artist, as the protagonist, over the course of the novel gets more and more resolved to study art and to create art. And at the end of the book, she resolves to move to Beijing to create something. And so it's kind of a rich text, which is a phrase I don't like using that often, but I think qualifies here. And so we talk about multilingual practices, East and West cultural exchange, and we even get into some recent discourse about Guo's novel that came out last year, which is a retelling of Moby Dick. So there's a lot to chew on in this episode, and the book has a lot going on. And so we enjoyed talking about it a lot, and we hope you enjoy the conversation.
There's like a weird tension throughout the book about like what does this character actually like desire?
Yeah,
because like I think there's a pretty clear like self-sabotage angle where like I don't know, he's in the city, he doesn't really know why he's in the city, he leaves the city at the end, he's immediately seems to be happier.
He goes monk mode.
Great handle on like why he's in the city in the first place.
Yeah, and when we're shown his family, they seem nice, and he's just like, I never want to see these guys again. Yeah,
I feel like there's an implication there where that's like a homophobia thing.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Well, not necessarily like, oh, these people are like clearly homophobic in the text, but like I think that's kind of like why he thinks they're so like small-minded, because like he's a bisexual like Gen X guy in like 2007.
Okay, that I hadn't thought about that. That makes more sense.
I mean, maybe this is just like my incurable prejudice against the peasantry.
Yeah, but against perfidious Albion. Yeah.
Well, no, not even against perfidious Albion. They're Welsh. That's not perfidious Albion.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
This is my prejudice against anyone who doesn't live within a major metro area.
Yeah, I was like trying to imagine like him talking to anyone when he moves out into the countryside, and it's like I guess he doesn't want to do that. I don't know. So
yeah, I mean, again, I don't know how literally we're supposed to like read some of this stuff, because I think, I think there's like a broader metaphor or like something, maybe not metaphor. I don't know what quite the right word I'm looking for here is, but like this character is kind of like, again, this caricature of like Western individualism as well as like everything else. So I think that there's something there too about like his desire to like be completely cut off and alone, and like his ability to like only really seem to be emotionally open like via letter or like email.
Right. Which might be a bit of the book being like, this is a book. And so you can only have him do that. I don't know what I think about the technique of having like a fraught relationship be like emotionally resolved via a letter. Like I didn't particularly like it in Major Arcana. And it feels a bit like a book almost like relying on its form to resolve like any structural problems, like oh, this relationship doesn't work, but I can communicate everything that I need to communicate through the written word. And I guess, like, again, it's, you know, books have been written that way, but it feels kind of like you're like, all right, I guess this is the only way it could be resolved.
I'm a little more generous to it here from the standpoint of, I think, like, two things. A, like, this is, I guess we can say, like, an epistolary novel. It's a novel in the form of a journal.
Yeah.
So it feels a little more natural to have, like, another text intrude on the text.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite feel as jarring as, like, if we were in third person omniscient narration and we just zoom in and, like, read a letter. I also think that, like, the nature of this relationship, that this is like a relationship that doesn't even make it a full year. I think,
which also reminds me of someone I know, but I won't go into further detail.
Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about my love life and who characters in this book may or may not remind me of. See previous episode for greater context.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should do a proper introduction. Hello, dear listener. You're listening to the Infinite Library podcast. I'm your host, Ben.
我是 我叫 my Chinese is a bit rusty. Huang Rowang. My tones are still really bad. I apologize to anyone Chinese who's listening.
Well, John, in doing so, you've actually provided a great introduction to this book, which is called A Concise Chinese English Dictionary for Lovers by Xiaolu Guo. I'm sure you can correct me for the pronunciation there, John.
I would try, but I don't have the characters for her name in front of me, so I actually can't.
And this book, I actually did not write down 2007. I believe this came out in 2007. And I guess I should probably explain why I picked this book, because I think this was my pick.
Yes, it was. I'd never heard of this one.
So in my career as a writing instructor, I've been given sometimes a writing instruction class that is designed primarily for multilingual students. Now, in a perfect world, I would also be multilingual. However, I am not. And so when I'm teaching this class, I'm often using first person narration or writing, nonfiction writing by multilingual authors. And I assigned a piece that was written by Guo called Is This What the West Is Really Like? How It Felt to Leave China for Britain. And I found it to be one of the better pieces because I think Xiaolu Guo has a very particular view on, like, we could say globalization, on East versus West dynamics. And in that piece, she refers to writing an entire novel in, like, broken English, which is a term that, you know, a lot of multilingual people don't like using because, again, it implies that the English is worse. Rather, as we teach in this multilingual class that I've taught before, it's just different. It's a different kind of English that can be used, not a worse one. And I thought, that's an interesting idea for a book. And I filed it away in my brain. And when we were putting together the woke episode, I thought this would be the perfect time to read this. Now, for another bit of context that I'm going to provide, recently, Xiaolu Guo is getting a lot of hate on book Twitter for a book that came out in 2025 called Call Me Ishmael, feminine spelling. And it's like, it's Moby Dick, but Ishmael is a girl. And everyone was dunking on it. And I thought, this is a bit unfair to Xiaolu Guo. There were even people who were dunking on it who hadn't read Moby Dick. And then they recently tweeted that tweet to say that they read Moby Dick now. And this is even more offensive. And I saw that and I thought, interesting. So I think it's interesting reading this book now because Guo is quite a prolific author and director. She's actually put together some films. And
she's from what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, and she's even working right now, as the Call Me Ishmael example had shown, that I think people are getting mad at for some sort of Well, anyway, I won't get into that.
Are we still mad about wokeness?
That's what it felt like. Anyway,
these people need to get the memo. Like the woke 2 officially kicked off with, this season, and people got to realize, like, got to stop getting mad about this stuff. This is coming back. Woke's coming back in a big way.
It's inevitable at this point. Now's the time to buy for woke 2.
buy.
Yeah. Don't hold back, folks. Now it's time to buy in. So that's kind of why I picked this book. So yeah, John, what are your thoughts about a concise Chinese English dictionary?
Okay, I have some thoughts. First things first, I did just want to mention a cool biographical factoid I found on her Wikipedia page. Her father was a traditional landscape ink painter, and her mother was a Red Guard during the Cultural Revolution.
Yes,
that is like, yeah. How could you come up with like that? Would feel like if you had a character in a novel with that background. It would feel like too on the nose. So very cool. I actually think I want to check out more of her stuff. So I guess I found this book very interesting, like as a reading experience. I'll say like the plot didn't exactly, like the characters, the plot didn't totally like suck me in. But as like a phenomenon of reading something, this really worked for me. And I think it kind of comes down to my particular background. Feels like kind of an exaggeration, but it's like, as someone who has been learning Chinese off and on for the last couple of years, and probably can not even express themselves as well as the protagonist in this book can in our first chapter, where she's speaking particularly broken English. It was an interesting experience to kind of see someone kind of go through a journey I feel like I've been going through kind of in reverse. And I think too, kind of having some of this background in Chinese actually gave me a little more of an appreciation for what she's doing sometimes in the way she has this character speak English. Some of the stuff about the way that, like, again, Chinese and English kind of transliterate one way or the other is something that I feel like I have, again, not like a perfect understanding of, but more than like your average person who does not speak like one of those two languages at all. The stuff around like, the frustrations she expresses around like verb tenses, which for those of you who don't know any Mandarin, like Mandarin does not have verb tenses. It does not really have super distinct ways to like pluralize words. There's a lot that just comes down to, you're supposed to pick up a lot just based on the context of the conversation you're having. And I mean, it works, but like, again, when we're talking then about the way that broken English is not bad, it's just a different way of speaking English. I remember when I first started learning Chinese, and I thought about kind of like the stereotypical way that like Chinese, like basically like in my head, I was like, oh, like when you watch like a movie and like they have like a guy who works in like a Chinese restaurant who doesn't speak a lot of English. You kind of think of the stereotypical way that they are portrayed as talking, how many you want, it $5.
No plural.
It's this thing where it's like if you don't know any Mandarin, you think that's racist. That's like just a way of like, these people are stupid. Like they can't speak this language properly. But no, they're just not totally they're just porting over like Mandarin grammar into English.
Yes, exactly.
In this way that is actually like very naturalistic.
Yeah, and it's usually now most college institutions are more accepting of this, but every so often when I would tutor, someone would come in and say, yeah, my teacher said I write horrible English. And when you read it, it's just got transliteration stuff. Like there are things that make more sense in the other language that are appearing in the new one. And, you know, why wouldn't it? Like, it's not like you can just, you know, press the switch and like turn the circuit over or something like that. So, there's a great description in that piece that I assigned that I just want to read real quick. So this is not from the book, but it's from that article I referred to. This is Guo. I particularly detested the past perfect progressive tense, which I called the annoying PPP, a continuous action completed at some point in the past. I felt giddy every time I heard the annoying PPP. I just couldn't understand how anyone was able to grasp something so complex. For example, my grammar book said Peter had been painting his house for weeks, but he finally gave up. My immediate reaction, even before I got to the grammatical explanation, was, my God, how could someone paint his house for weeks and still give up? I just couldn't see how time itself could regulate people's actions as if they were little clocks. As for the grammar, the word order had been, and the added flourishes like ing made my stomach churn. They were bizarre decorations that did nothing but obscure a simple, strong building. My instinct was to say something like, Peter tries to paint his house, but sadness overwhelms him, causing him to lay down his brushes and give up his dream, which is very funny. So, and like, you know, that's the nonfiction explanation we could say of some of the stuff the character struggles with tenses in this book. And as you said, John, like counting, like plural nouns, also like definitions, like love is a big one, and like what it means to love in Chinese versus English.
Yeah, you know, the book is written not as like a dictionary exactly, but like each chapter kind of starts with like a vocabulary word and a definition.
Yeah.
And then a smattering of Chinese characters, which I don't know if those are always direct translations of the word or if they're...
It's very interesting when she decides to do that, because I feel like the Chinese characters get included as she gets better at English, almost as if she's like drawing more parallels between the two. But yeah, there's like there's an instance where they appear with more frequency.
Yeah. And so that's interesting to me. You know, I was kind of struck when I started the book. The chapters are very short.
Yeah.
Even as the book goes on, they get longer, but I don't think there's a single chapter that's like longer than 10 pages. At least in the ebook version I was reading, which obviously can be like a little hinky in terms of how pages are being measured, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's an interestingly structured book. You know, I'm kind of thinking back on some of the conversations we had about modernism in the last 2 weeks, and this book is not like pushing the language quite that far.
Yeah.
But in terms of, again, kind of using the language, you know, as a mechanic in the storytelling, kind of beyond just like having it be the report of the events being described. I think this book is doing something pretty cool.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too that in that piece she mentions how she had a journal like the main character does with like definitions, and like that was kind of like the inspiration for the book. And I think like using using not perfect English to write in a certain way is just a nice illustration of it being, you know, not, you know, inferior to correct standard American English, which if you go down the multilingual, we could say ideology, doesn't exist. Nobody speaks standard American English, is if you go down that rabbit hole. So it's cool to use the ones that you have to write something like you would, you know, any other style. And I think that's, like you were saying, John, pretty modernistic to me. Yeah,
definitely. Well, what approach do you kind of want to take here, Ben? This is a book that in some ways feels pretty straightforward. In some ways, you know, there is definitely some complexity here that we could dig into.
Well,
there's not like a ton of plot, but, you know, I don't know if we want to give some kind of a plot summary. Since this is your pick, I'm going to kind of let you take the lead here.
All right. I should do a plot summary. I haven't prepared anything. So let's see how this goes. So the main character is on a student visa from China to Great.
Crucially,
yeah.
sorry, we never learn either of the kind of core dyad of this book. We never learn their names.
Well, the lady's name is given once.
I must have missed it.
And she goes by Z because I think her name starts.
You're absolutely right. I fucked that up. Okay, yeah.
But it's given once, so like I wouldn't, I think it makes sense you didn't remember it.
Shuang Xiao Qiao, I think.
Yes, yeah, and she says multiple times that she doesn't like having people go, and so she just call me Z, basically, which I think is a great thing that many multilingual speakers will tell you about. I remember there was a great student I had in one of these classes that I taught this essay, and the first day he introduces himself in his full Chinese name, and he's the only person in the room, by the way, because he got there early. And I said, "Oh, nice to meet you." And later on his first essay, I find out that he was like, I thought about giving like an English name, and I said, "Nope, I'm Chinese. This is my name." And so he like wrote a really nice defense of that in his first essay. And I was just thinking like, man, he's really thinking about some of the things that I'm bringing up for these multilingual students in terms of like using your language. And so that, again, that's the difference kind of from this protagonist who's kind of forced to say Z and not her full name.
Well, I think there's also something there in terms of just kind of where, this book takes place in 2007.
Yeah.
Which there's even a reference at one point to the upcoming Beijing Olympics that would take place in 2008, which, I don't want to maybe overstate anything. But I think that maybe we can look at that, at least maybe within the world of a certain way of reading global history and culture. That's kind of this re-entry or entry of China, as a modern country to like pop cultural awareness, which I think has only, I think exponentially increased since then. I think that it's very interesting kind of reading this book, looking at how it portrays China in 2007, which, it's kind of interesting. This book kind of also like starts up around like just like maybe 10 years after the last Chinese novel we read. Oh my God, my brain is the Mo Yan.
Life and Death are wearing me out. Yeah. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. This is like 10 years later.
Yeah. So another sub-theme of the show, modern Chinese history and the dawn of the Chinese century. But this book kind of starts where that book ends, or, again, a handful of years later. And even though most of it doesn't take place in China, the place of China is very different in 2007 than it is in 1990, whatever. Or I guess that book literally ends at the year 2000. And then, we fast forward to today, I think it's pretty easy we've all seen the, proliferation of memes, for lack of a better term, that have really kind of been about Chinese culture becoming something very trendy in the West.
Yeah, definitely.
Particularly with like a certain subset of like young, I guess we'll say like Zoomer men, some of us were ahead of the curve on that. Just going to point that out. I was having a very Chinese time in my life before it was cool.
You're an early Insta influencer. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, China is I think that, and I don't have numbers here. I'm not going to overstate anything, but I think that a much larger percentage of like the English speaking population, whether in Britain or America, would know how to pronounce zhuang on seeing it today than in 2007.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that it's interesting in that way too, like you were saying, seeing her interactions with her own culture and other people Because again, like, you know, maybe the man she meets would be more into the type of pork that she is always trying to eat than her boyfriend. Anyway, well,
I will say, man, I think hearing the descriptions of food in this book got me kind of hungry. Like,
yeah,
the food sounded really good.
I said to myself, she likes eating pork, so do I, miss. Yeah, so.
I kept thinking about, Ben, have you seen like the TikToks or like Instagram reel videos of like the cartoonishly horrifying like British Chinese takeout restaurants,
where it's like brown,
or like black,
or
you're walking into one of those,
and everyone's just like, well, the Chinese food could be adapted to any culture. It's like Americans need it to be like piercingly sweet, whereas like British people need it to look like potatoes and mash or something.
Yeah,
like
British people just need it to be like thick gravy they can just pour all over everything. The Irish eat a lot of French fries with it for some reason.
Dude, I that reminds me, well, we're getting a side tangent, but I need to try a fry bag at some point. Are you familiar with that? Spice bag,
they look pretty fire.
I need to get blackout drunk and just have a spice bag. That's something that I feel
like I could probably like figure out how to make those for us next time you're in town. I feel like it's probably not too crazy.
Yeah, that'd be so good. Just have a bunch of beers and eat and have spice bags. Okay. Well,
getting off topic.
Back to the plot summary. So she is coming to Great Britain on a year-long student visa to learn English on the behest of her parents, who I think make shoes.
Yes, they live in from what I can tell, from what I gathered, like Southwest China. Her parents are former peasants who sold their land for their kind of shitty land for pretty cheap, but managed to spin that into a somewhat successful like shoe manufacturing concern. And they're trying to, sort of increase their business, get involved with the global market, but they, want their daughter to learn English so that she can kind of be their representative in, to the English speaking world.
Yeah. And so she comes to Great Britain, to London. And she's taking a English, like how to learn English class with other multilingual students. And she is lonely because she knows no one. And she meets an older Gen X man at the theater. And this Gen X man is 20 years older than her. And he is in every single way the complete opposite of her in ways that are often played up, I think, in a way that you were kind of mentioning, John, sort of feels like maybe programmatic. Like he is an individualist. She is a collectivist. He is vegetarian, as she, as we've been saying, really loves pork because she didn't get to eat pork growing up because it was either for men or for like it was expensive.
They were very poor when she was growing up. Like the family's business, their fortunes have only turned around very recently.
Yeah, which is also very in keeping with Life and Death Are Wearing Me Out. Because remember that the
pig farm.
Yeah, they get rich towards the end there.
Pigs.
Well, yeah, and then they're like, remember, like the one kid is like the nouveau rich Chinese guy, the nouveau riche. So then they basically it's her relationship. And as you might suspect, it starts off great. A lot of sex. I find this book is very frank about sex in a way that I found refreshing. And a lot of nature imagery because he is a sculptor
and a gardener.
And she really likes movies, which is an interesting point. So Ursula Le Guin raises the point that like the movie fixation seems to be something that's like the author, because she went to Great Britain to study film. She made movies, and like the film fixation isn't quite explained. I liked it though. There's a sentence where she says like movies make me feel less lonely, but I actually think they make me feel more lonely, which I think is like a nice formulation of it. Yeah.
I mean, like one of my favorite parts of like genuinely, I really like the way this book uses cinema. As a device. I think that it does it really well, and you can tell. Yeah, this is someone who studied film, who's passionate about film. Writing this, I was like one of the first times she goes to the movies in this book. She goes to see Mulholland Drive, and what else? What was the other one?
Oh yeah, the Mulholland Drive one is so funny. Let me see if I can find it.
I think she goes to see a double feature though, but it's like 2 David Lynch movies, and one of them is Mulholland Drive.
Blue Velvet.
Blue Velvet. Like,
Yeah.
imagine seeing Mulholland Drive and Blue Velvet, and you barely speak English.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Here's the bit. Hold on.
No, but in my head, I'm like,
yeah.
no. Like, I actually think like if you don't speak English, I think David Lynch is actually like a great person to like watch.
Yeah, because like
it's
you would get all of the subconscious stuff. You wouldn't have to be distracted by the meaning. So
exactly, the man is working in pure cinema, and cinema, not mathematics, is the universal language.
Yeah. So American films strange in London. People at language school tell me use student card. I can have cheap cinema ticket. Last week I go Prince Charles and Chinatown. They say is cheapest cinema in London. 2 films screening, Mulholland Driver and Blue Velvet. Altogether is more than 4 hours. Perfect for my lonely night. So I buy tickets and get in. What crazy films. And then there's like some description of like leaving cinema trembling. I try to find bus home, but mean kids teasing at each other on bus stop. Shouting and swearing a bit like terrorists. Anyway, the way it says, but crazy. Wow, what crazy films. It's like, yeah, perfect. So.
But I think like metaphorically, it's beautiful because those are both movies about desire of the other, longing for like companionship and connection, while also kind of grappling with the impossibility of that as like a real like thing you can hold on to in the world.
Yeah, and just like sort of again like perfect for my lonely night, and then just being like completely like like what's going on? I have no idea. Oh, that reminds me, there's a great little detail from that article about her going to film school in Britain, the actual author, not the character. My film school experience wasn't as friendly as the English pub. My previous training in China was, I quickly discovered the enemy of the style here. The filmmakers I had loved intensely when I was in Beijing, such as Ziga Vertov, Pasolini, Fassbender, Godard, Ackerman, Marker, and Jean Rouch, were considered old-fashioned artists. They had belonged only to European cinema. I realized that auteur cinema had little place in England, in Britain. Which I think is like kind of fascinating. Like I wonder like why they were doing that at the time, but that feels like a very like dated, like I don't think Britain's like that anymore, but it's just they're like no auteur films. So
like I'm wondering like what she was being asked. Like she doesn't mention what she was asked to study instead, does she?
Not specifically.
Like, what was the in vogue style when she was in school over there? Because I have no idea. I don't think they were like studying Ron Howard or something.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like she doesn't actually, it's interesting. She doesn't actually say, it says, if I ever press my point too much in class, the students would despise me, accusing me of being pretentious and intellectual. Of course, I felt their judgment was unfair. For me, being pretentious was the complete opposite of being intellectual. Yeah. And then she sort of talks about that.
I will say that does vibe with like how I sometimes felt like in English classes when I was in college.
Yeah.
And you'd always have someone in the class who was like, "Oh yeah, my favorite book's Harry Potter." Like, that was before we knew all that stuff.
Well, and regarding the use of films, I found this bit by our queen Ursula Guin kind of interesting. So Ursula Guin wrote a review of this book for The Guardian. Let me skip to the bit about films. The only element in it that rang a little false to me was the frequent reference to films. Clearly, films are important to the author, and the cinema may now constitute a bridge between the cultures of rural China and urban England. Still, I found it a little hard to believe that our narrator was quite so up on the subtleties of Saturday night and Sunday morning. For readers like myself who barely remember the movie, it doesn't function well to reinforce or explain an emotional crisis. That's the danger of leaning on a work of art to do the work of your work of art. We don't share references as we did when the world was smaller. I don't know if that makes sense, Ursula, to be quite frank, because I feel like if it's a globalized world, we are sharing references, right? So wouldn't it make sense? I don't know.
And also, I don't know. I think that, like, I look at this character, I look at Zhuang, and she's someone who is, I don't want to say childlike. That's not what I mean, but she's someone who is.
Oh, she is only 24. I should have mentioned.
She is only 24, yes, but that is not a child.
Right. True.
But what I was going to say is, you know, she's someone who is. She's not approaching life in a foreign country the way that maybe Ursula Le Guin, you know, went about her day-to-day life where she lived, or even maybe when she visited other countries.
Yeah.
You know, she is very much in like student mindset. She is not just like watching these films for fun. It's very clear she's also like trying to understand the things around her on like a deeper level, because she's trying to figure out like how can she bridge this cultural divide she feels. And so, you know, I think that kind of as the book goes on and we kind of get these longer descriptions like what's happening in these movies she's watching or in these books she's reading, like, to me that's true. Like, this is a 24-year-old who's discovering a love for these things, but is also like, like watching these films trying to get a better handle on her English.
Yeah. And I think that also to me explains her kind of stereotypical travel abroad experience, which we can jump ahead a little bit, where her 20-year-old boyfriend, perhaps,
or 44-year-old,
or 20-year-old or 44-year-old boyfriend, perhaps sick of her, is encouraging her to travel Europe. And it's not my favorite part of the book. And it's I don't know. It just feels like something I've read before in a bunch of different ways. But
it's strange.
Yeah.
I think I might have gotten a little more out of it than you did. I mean, I agree. It's very much a travelogue kind of grand tour type of section of the book. You know, it takes up basically a whole month. We didn't mention it. The book is also kind of told like broken up by months.
Yeah.
It's kind of told as a journal, but like we don't know exactly what day most of these entries are happening. They're not dated.
They're not dated, and the only heading, like we said, is definitions of words.
Yeah, but I don't know. I found the tour of Europe very interesting for a particular reason, and that is the terrifying specter of sexual violence that hangs over all of those chapters.
Yeah, and then is like shown.
Paid off in a pretty like nasty little scene that I appreciated. I'm not gonna say I had fun reading it, obviously, but like it's like very short and sharp and matter of fact.
Yeah, and that's what's weird to me too, because, well, not weird, but it's interesting that the boyfriend says this. He doesn't say anything that this could happen. And then when it does happen, she doesn't tell him about it. She waits to tell him about it. And then when she does, he acts like really offended in a way that's kind of weird. And then, it turns out she's pregnant. Could be a result of that. It's not clear if it's the result of that or the boyfriend. And then the boyfriend takes her to get an abortion.
Okay, I feel like we have like kind of maybe skipped ahead a little bit in a way that I'm not.
We have, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're maybe missing some crucial context here. Mind if I step in for a moment? So I think we kind of did a bit of a disservice to the book here. We kind of skimmed over a good chunk here because we find the boyfriend character to be kind of insufferable. But I think that like. This is not kind of a thing where it's like, oh, this is I think we're supposed to find this character kind of insufferable.
Right.
I think that kind of the friction in their relationship we're very much supposed to, find him frustrating and irritating in the same way that our protagonist ends up feeling by the end.
Side note, I was enjoying reading how many people on Bad Reads kept saying they stopped reading because of the relationship. I said, oh. Anyway.
Yeah, he's not even the protagonist. You can't, even the likable protagonist people, like, come on. He's not
it's just so funny to be like, I condone this age gap relationship. I not condone, I say this is not good. Yeah. So.
But, all right. Anyway. So, crucially, they meet at a film.
Yes.
They meet seeing, I think, a Michael Fassbender movie.
That's a good question. I don't remember.
Is it a Wim Wenders movie?
I think it's Wim Wenders, right?
But is Michael Fassbender in it? Maybe. I don't know Wim Wenders very well.
He did Paris, Texas, which I thought was not that good.
Yeah,
it's a really problematic take, but I got to the end and I thought, that's it? Anyways, never mind. Sorry.
The Germans don't have the juice anymore, and that's I'm willing to go to bat on that. Anyway, they meet at a German film about an older woman, and
it is Fassbinder, yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's Fassbinder, not Fassbender. That's why I'm confused.
Okay, that was my bad. Yeah.
No, it's Rainer Werner Fassbinder. Yeah, they meet at a showing of
Fear Eats Soul.
Fear Eats Soul, yes. Which is a movie about an older woman and a younger, I believe, foreign man in Germany falling in love with each other. Kind of this unorthodox relationship. And, it's one of those things where, in 2007, I was not thinking about dating. I had other stuff going on in my life. I don't know what was normal back then. But I know that right now I would certainly not approach a stranger I was sitting 2 seats over from in a movie and immediately try to pick them up. Even if they were really 20 years younger than me and barely spoke the same language that I do.
Yeah, this felt like there's a great book called Infante's Inferno, which is written by this Cuban author, and at least 100 pages are dedicated to the art of picking up women in theaters in 1930s Cuba. And I feel like that's an aspect of film culture that is basically gone. No one is picking up anyone else in a theater because you have to sit in those huge recliner chairs and you can't even.
The Alamo Drafthouse is going to kick you out.
Yeah. The Alamo Drafthouse is going to fucking kill you if you try to do this. So it's an aspect of film culture that's not even thinking of the 20 years younger and don't even speak the same language aspect of this. I think the book tries very hard to paint just how magical the moment was, and I kind of buy it. Just the way she's quite lonely. She's watching her watch the movie. He's watching her. They're watching each other watch the movie. It's all set up. It works fairly well. But yeah, I don't think I would do that either, even if it was the height of picking up people in film culture in films, because I don't think you can do that anymore. So
well, I think that there's a level on which when you read a book like this, you have to leave a little room for the fact that this is not strictly speaking a realist novel. There's a device happening here where there's a broader point being made by this relationship that's about more than just the portrayal of the relationship in a quote unquote realistic manner, if that makes sense.
Right.
Maybe that's a obvious point to make, but sometimes I feel like it bears repeating because sometimes it seems like people have lost sight of that fact.
I think it's worth making two, because I think this book is trying to say stuff about value systems in a way that's heightened. And I think that makes sense, what you're saying.
Yeah. So like we said, the boyfriend is very much set up as kind of this, he is kind of the stand-in for Western culture as a whole, kind of made through a particular sort of a type of person I don't really feel like I've ever come in contact with, because this guy is now pushing like over 60 years old.
Right.
Which is crazy to think about in some ways. But yeah, this is like kind of a holdout, like Gen X, like anti-sellout guy from what I can tell. He is this kind of consciously non-commercial sculptor. He like lucked into buying a house on the cheap when he was younger.
He's a vegetarian.
He is like ostensibly left wing, but like very ignorant of anything involving like actually like communist countries.
Yeah, I think he was a former anarchist, which then the narrator says that he actually is still an anarchist. So
yeah, he's lefty, but like in this very, kind of the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, oh, he's kind of a Mark Fisher type. He's the type of guy who's going to kill himself because jungle music doesn't kill capitalism.
I only wish he's not even that cool, John. He's like, yeah.
You get what I mean.
Yeah, actually, this would be so awesome if the narrator knew Nick Land. And Nick Land was like a character. It's like, we're going to go hang out with this teacher I know that he doesn't actually teach. He just does speed all day.
That blog is Nick Land moving to China.
Yeah, he's like, oh wow, Shanghai, so beautiful. Anyway, yeah, he's always like railing about society. The boyfriend is. It's like society is this and that, and it's like, all right.
Yeah, but he's a particular picture of kind of this defeated like Western subject.
Yeah,
who is like both constantly striving for like authenticity and some kind of like higher purpose in a life of like kind of self-imposed like misery.
Yeah, and individualism. And I think there's a way in which he's positioned as being more experienced than she is in a worldly, in a worldly way. At which point she then kind of realizes that he's, like you were saying, kind of blinkered and short-sighted.
Yeah, there's a scene early on in their relationship where he leaves for a weekend to go visit a friend of his alone in, I think, Devon, which is like pretty far south of London. Insofar as anything in Perfectus Albion is far away from anything else. Wow, a country that's like the size of a medium-sized U.S. state. What a concept. Anyway. And she finds some of his old diaries from when he was closer to her age. And she finds out that he is bisexual.
Yes.
That he, when he kind of left his small hometown in Wales and moved to London, he was, I don't quite think like a prostitute, but like was very much like kind of in like very casual, like sexual relations with older men for like a number of different purposes.
There's that letter kind of it's like I still think of you fondly, but I don't love you, is like one of the fragments of the letters she finds. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is kind of this moment where she realizes, how much more I don't want to say experienced exactly, but this is when she kind of realizes it's this first realization that there's this gap in between them in this very like larger way than like the cultural gap.
He's also upset that she violated his privacy by doing this, which is important,
yes.
I think. Yeah.
And she makes there's a lot of tension within their relationship about kind of their differing expectations for what a relationship is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Seems like, and I'm gonna put like a big asterisk here that like I don't know quite where Guo is drawing like lines between where this character's naivete is because of their culture, where this naivete is because of their inexperience, where this naivete maybe is because of their gender.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be kind of all three of these things. There's overlapping things here. The cultural divide is clearly what the book is most focused on. But I think there's also something about the fact that she's 24 and is, from a culture that just has a very different set of expectations around particularly feminine expression of love and affection.
Yeah.
That is operative here. But she basically, like, they move in within like a few days of meeting each other.
She's also like feel like I kept waiting for him to be like, I didn't mean that. Because the way that happens is like, it's almost like she misinterprets something he says.
Yeah. And she even, I think, basically says that she did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he never really makes a point of it, or at least she never tells us that he does. Or, I mean, there's definitely something here in terms of like, oh, this is a sad sack, like 44-year-old loser who, I think at some level, we're meant to kind of read this as like, oh my God, he is so enamored with the idea of having this like 24-year-old exotic woman like living with him that he kind of is willing to overlook a lot of incompatibilities for a while.
This is what made all the bad reads reviewers uncomfortable. So
maybe that's the point.
But I think,
she very quickly is like, thinks that they are more or less like married, or at least that, they're in love like pretty quickly, and that they're supposed to like really be sharing their lives together in a way that, at least in her experience growing up, in a small village in southwestern China, there isn't a lot of privacy that she's used to. There is not a lot of kind of division between people, particularly within kind of a familial unit, particularly between lovers. Whereas he is kind of much more standoffish. We get the impression he's someone who has been in a lot of relationships, probably a lot that have not gone well. And he's very reticent about getting too involved with someone, in a dedicated sense.
Right.
She keeps saying like, do you want to be with me, for the long term or not? And he's like, I can't make any promises.
The future.
About that. I don't know what the future is going to look like. I'm focused on living in the present.
Yes.
I kind of appreciated the way that this book really problematizes the idea of like living in the present.
As did I.
Because I feel like that's a thing that like, I think that's a trenchant insight on the part of this book, that in the West, that's something that I think, despite the fact that most people in the West do not successfully even do that, it's something that we're told is like something to aim for, to not worry about the future, to just be focused on the here and now, that is like where you find meaning and joy. Whereas, again, this character, our protagonist Zhuang has grown up in poverty in southwestern China. She's had to think about the future, whether because she wants to create a better life for herself, or her parents are expecting her to create a better life for herself. That actually reminds me, another thing I liked a lot about this book. I feel like this book does a really good job kind of, her parents are not likable characters.
They're not.
For the most part. I mean, honestly, we really don't get much of her dad at all.
Yeah,
her mom is made out to be incredibly unpleasant.
Yeah.
But I also don't think it like falls into kind of like, oh, her parents are evil. Like they're these stereotypes of like overbearing, like tiger parents. I guess that's more of like an Asian American stereotype, but you still get what I mean. Like, I feel like there's kind of a balance there. It feels like there's kind of a balance here. Maybe it's just that, again, I read Life and Death is Wearing Me Out, and I'm kind of thinking like, oh, her parents are basically the characters in that book.
I mean,
last generation.
I mean, I think they are, especially the last generation, where it's like upwardly mobile, like comparatively speaking.
So I feel like I maybe have like a little more compassion for those characters, but like, I don't know. There's a matter of factness about the, there's a point in the book where she's like, I realized that my upbringing was pretty emotionally abusive.
Well, also, like, she's like, I love my mother, but I wish she was dead or something. Like, there's something it felt
very real, but also like very balanced.
Yeah. The present thing is also interesting because I think the narrator even attempts to point out that you can't actually define what the present is. And like, at least in her current state of English, like, comprehension, it's like, she's like, but where does it end? Like when is the present over? Isn't it always that? Like there's no way to define it concretely.
Yeah, well, I think that this is another point where again the language becomes really key. I think we mentioned it earlier. One of the protagonist's real frustrations, one of Zhuang's real frustrations in learning language is her frustration with how complicated English tenses are. Verb tenses.
Yeah.
And there's a point towards the end of the book, and maybe I'm again kind of jumping ahead a bit here, but there's a point where she talks about love and the way that in English, love is like a word that can like undergo a lot of permutations.
Yes.
And those permutations can affect like how long it is and how meaningful it is. And, in Chinese, love is one word, I. And, in her mind, the way she verbalizes it here in her journal, I being a word that does not have tense, it can't be permutated into all these different forms. Yeah. It's this kind of eternal love. That when you say you love someone in Chinese, to her, it means that like that love is something that is stable and lasting in this way that clearly the boyfriend does not see it as.
Yes.
He is kind of like, I am in this for as long as it is convenient or pleasant for me, but I am not interested in any kind of like commitment, and I am not interested in any kind of like any kind of like promising even of like ongoing affection.
Right. And like I think that comes from his like transient experience as well, like the idea that he's seen all of these loves pass basically. And that like there's no reason to think this one will be any different. So yeah. It looks like I was just looking briefly for a bit about the present tense stuff. There's a great bit where they're arguing in the beginning where basically he says, I live in the present tense, and she says, well, what direction do you have? And he's like, well, I don't think we're communicating properly, basically. Like the idea that like you have to have a direction. And I can't quite find the exact thing here, but the idea that like you would have to have she says later that the Chinese live in expectation. And she describes, as you were saying, John, that the farmer basically does everything with the, expectation that it's going to be something later involving like crops, involving setup, involving this. And like there has to be some orientation. But later she says that the entire universe is in the present tense, which I think is like a kind of a huge realization in terms of tenses. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? I'd rather live in expectation. Like, I feel like I'm tired of living in the present. I don't think that's a very good thing to do.
Wasn't she quoting Flaubert there?
I think so.
Or she's quoting someone when she says that.
Yeah.
It's not Shakespeare. I will say, very impressive that she goes from reading like basically nothing in English when she arrives to reading like not just Shakespeare, but like Pessoa.
Yeah.
She's reading the Book of Disquiet and Virginia Woolf like within a year.
Yeah, see, that's where I also was like, I think this book is secretly a Kunstroman, where it's
absolutely.
Yeah, where it's like, suddenly she's just like, I will create art by the end. But we're
she's like, I want to be a writer. I want to dedicate myself to something bigger, like writing or painting.
Which like, is kind of what the boyfriend does. He's just so like stubbornly non-commercial about it.
Well, I found myself thinking about that as I was reading. And, there's, again, I don't know if I've met exactly this type of person, but I feel like there's an orientation towards art that this guy has that I feel like I have seen, which is kind of this, like, he makes work that is consciously ugly.
Yeah.
And he thinks that because it's ugly, that means it's like more meaningful.
See, how can you be an artist and be afraid of artifice? I feel like that's I don't know.
How would you be afraid of beauty?
Right. Yeah. I just. John's pointing up for all of you that get that visualizing.
The good.
Yeah, the good. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, like his statues sound interesting, but at the same time, like, yeah, he's very stubborn about like not trying to sell out, so to speak. You know, it's like, I don't know.
Well, you know, there's a big point of contention between them is among many.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like this is a place where I kind of again saw myself and the protagonist a little bit in Zhuang. You know, Zhuang, the boyfriend seems to make money when he can doing pretty like backbreaking, like moving jobs. Like he has like a beat up van and he gets in the van. Yeah. He does like odd jobs, like physical odd jobs. And he takes a lot of pride in this fact. He's like, oh, like physical work is so much better than intellectual work.
Yes.
You know, he has this idea of himself as like a working class guy, but he's clearly like beaten down by this work. It doesn't give him like the time or energy to like pursue his art or to be an attentive like partner, but he's so proud and so kind of like blinkered in his kind of Western like workerphilia, that he, you know, cannot see that he's like, wasting his life, wasting his potential, whereas the protagonist, being from China, you know, being from kind of this developing economy, she's like, no, like I want to use my mind. Like I want to be ambitious. I want to, I don't want to work with my hands like my parents had to. I want to get to do something more valuable, more meaningful. I don't mean to like totally denigrate physical labor, but I think like, yeah, there is something deeply silly about being like, oh, I it's so much better. Like it's just as stupid to like lionize doing backbreaking physical labor for no reason as it is to pretend that like being an accountant is radically better than being a you know, a line cook or something.
That's why like I always wanted a sequel to Office Space where he's got like back problems as a result of being a construction worker. And he's like thinking about, he's like, man, I really wish I could just go back to the office. like you've seen Office Space, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. There's a way in which the like construction worker life is presented as this like pastoral idyll at the end of that movie, which like of course it has to, like that's the point of the movie. But I'm always just like, yeah, really funny that it cuts to later where he's like yeah, I have to smoke weed because actually construction work doesn't pay for the way that my body's being destroyed. And so he's like a huge stoner. He's like, man, I had healthcare when I worked for the company and I don't have it anymore. like I don't know, like there's a way in which that, yeah, like you're saying, these things get elided, you know, for various reasons. And I like that they have that argument because I feel like it's an interesting thing again for like to say to a 24-year-old, like, yeah, you should be working, you should be doing physical labor. And it's like, yeah, I need to use my brain, you know? So,
well, you know, it's something that actually I found really interesting from the context of like, are you familiar with kind of like, have you seen like Les Chinois?
I don't think so.
So it's a French film from the 60s, and it's about kind of it's kind of a film that was made in response to like the uprisings in the 60s and, you know, the French like university uprisings.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was kind of an interesting way in which like the Chinese Revolution kind of took up this really interesting place in the mind of like the Western left.
Yeah.
Where, you know, the Soviet Union was, you know, was not really like not able to be like embraced as like actually existing communism, whether because of Stalinism or because of state capitalism or blah, 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 you know, whatever meaningless slur, the Western intelligentsia were using against actually existing communism at the time. Uh, but the Chinese Revolution then kind of got picked up as like the hip thing. It was like, oh, look at these, they're bringing in the peasantry. It's so much truer. They have so much truer and realer than the Soviet Union, which is become a deformed workers' state,
right?
Because they were, of course, all listening to Trotsky.
Well, and this was the Cultural Revolution in China, right?
Well, this is a little bit before the Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution is kind of where that shifts a little bit.
Okay.
But like when this guy like is talking to her, he has like honestly kind of hilariously like contradictory notions of like what China is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
There's a point where he's like, wait, you guys like prize family this much, but you're a communist country.
Yeah.
Like, the family is, the central node of oppression. See, but then later he's like, well, you come from a Buddhist country. Don't you understand like the concept of emptiness?
Yeah, which like I think goes back to your point about like this is where everyone knew about China in 2007, whereas like nowadays it's like people know more because of cultural exposure.
But I think there's kind of this weird sense in which like he like both wants to idealize this person because she comes from like an ostensibly like left-wing country, whereas but he's also like incredibly tetchy whenever her lived experience contradicts like his ideology.
Right.
In a way that I think we still see play out today with Western leftists and their perceptions of the People's Republic.
And many other places.
And many other places, but considering, the Infinite Library's official stance of trust the great helmsman,
John, if we were in this book, we would just be having an intellectual debate with the narrator of this book, and she would think we're very cool and hip.
We'd be the good ones.
Yeah.
That's how we'd be referred to.
We just got invited to her birthday party, and she's like, "These guys are cool." Also, I want to make a point. I that birthday party scene is both great and excruciating.
Oh my god! Yeah,
like just a lot of stereotypes and language barrier things happen. Also.
So a little context.
Yeah.
So her 24th birthday arrives about midway through the book.
Yeah.
And it's this, they have like a party at like a Chinese restaurant. They're having hot pot.
I think she's cooking the hot pot actually. I
thought it was at the restaurant, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, because I thought she talked about preparing the hot pot for everyone at their house. That's what I thought. But
okay, I could be misremembering. But it's some of like her. I don't even know if they're quite friends, but people she's invited from her language class.
Yeah.
And there's a Japanese girl and a Korean girl. And then like three of like the boyfriend's like Western friends.
Right.
And so there's kind of this way in which like the three women who are all of Asian, quote unquote extraction, kind of. There's a very funny line where she's like, "Oh yeah, there's three people from Asia here, and like we can only talk in English because one of them's Japanese, one of them's Korean, and one of them's Chinese,
and we also all don't like each other." It's like what I think. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of just kind of like it's kind of this moment of like Orientalism in microcosm.
Yeah.
And then there's a very strange bit where her Japanese friend buys her a vibrator as a present.
And she doesn't know what it is.
And she has she also has kind of like an existential crisis over it once it's explained to her what it is, because she realizes it was manufactured in China.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my gosh, like people in Chinese factories are like making sex toys for people in Western countries to use. And she like imagines like this Chinese factory worker like having to be really cagey about like what he does for work because he doesn't want to like tell his friends at the bar that he like makes dildos.
Yeah, because he's kind of a fascinating scene out of they think about it, like this realization that like the Eastern forces of production are laboring for the pleasures of the West, essentially. And she's like aware of this in this scene. Also, as the real life author notes in that piece, like this was the first birthday party, like because her birthday wasn't celebrated in real life, and she had her first birthday party when she was in England. And I think the narrator says that at one point, like, well, it's my birthday, I have to have a birthday party.
Yeah, she actually doesn't even know when her birthday actually is.
Yeah. Also, this reminded me in a distant way of the all of the foreign students getting together in my college town to have Thanksgiving. Those were the best Thanksgiving parties. By the way, not the traditional American ones, but that's a side note. They just be like, oh, we're all here and America loves Thanksgiving, so we're having Thanksgiving. So
nothing like the zeal of a convert.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so like, and so like, there's a lot of missed cues. She doesn't know what the vibrator is. It's this realization of, like the ways her country has been supporting the West materially. I thought in an interesting way. Yeah. Great scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, where do we want to go from here?
We should probably circle back to the travel abroad abortion stuff that I cut to in my zeal to throw the boyfriend under the bus. So
yeah, so like Ben said, about midway through the book, I want to say it's sometime in the spring.
It also feels like at the exact moment where the premise is starting to run out of steam, at least for me personally. Like it's the exact moment where it's like, all right, I get it. They're two different kinds of people. Like
It definitely feels like there's something there in terms of like, she starts out, the book starts in February. Actually, no, it's not the spring. It's definitely the summer.
Yeah.
Or maybe even early fall. But she's kind of like, okay, I want to like, because like it goes like February to January, and definitely feels like she kind of is like, okay, I need to like find something to like fill this month with.
Yeah.
In like a big way. But yeah, the boyfriend basically really pressures her into.
Oh, it's in August. Yeah.
Okay, it's in August. So the boyfriend really pressures her into taking this trip abroad. So, like, basically, there's this thing called the Schengen Treaty, which is like a kind of like thing, even like above or within the EU, where it's like it's a compact of countries all within the EU, but it's like there are even less travel restrictions as long as you have like legal residence. Even if it's just on a visa in one of these countries, you can visit any of them, and it's all like within the continental stretch, more or less. So she gets kind of bundled off by her partner to kind of go on this like grand tour of Europe in kind of classic British fashion. And she starts in Paris and kind of like works her way east and then south and then north. And this is interesting because initially the boyfriend talks about wanting to take her across, the channel to visit like Spain and France.
And to show her this, stuff there. Yeah.
Yeah. But then, he kind of changes his tack. And he says, he writes her like an email when she's, I think it's not really important where she is. But he says like, I want you to kind of like experience true solitude and kind of like learn to enjoy it.
Yes.
Because she's traveling like totally alone. And there's a way in which like he's become so uncomfortable with her like need for connection, need for contact, that he's hoping that like by sending her off on this trip that she'll like learn to enjoy her own company and will, I think, like stop asking as much from him.
Yes.
So like you said, Ben, there is a way in which like it's not necessarily anything you haven't seen before. The if you've read any like, Euro lit, like Paris feels like Paris, Berlin feels like Berlin, Venice feels like Venice. But like, I don't know, I feel like I got something out of this section because they're like every time she goes to like one of these cities, maybe except Paris and I guess Dublin.
Yeah.
She'll like meet a man and there will be this incredibly sketchy scene
Yes. Yeah.
of her and this man kind of like there will be like this like typically it's men who kind of seem like they're a little like the boyfriend.
Yeah.
They're like a little bit artsy, a little bit like alternative, I guess. And, there will be like a moment of attraction and she won't quite know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And these men will be very friendly and kind of like invite her to spend time with them. And then like, yeah, it gets deeply uncomfortable. And like, I think if there's anything I found kind of, I mean, I don't want to like be like, oh, this was unrealistic because like I'm not a
right
Chinese woman in 2007 traveling in Europe, but like this character does not seem to even consider the idea of like sexual or personal violence like at all while she's on this trip. She keeps getting like in these kind of weird arrangements with these men very briefly. Like this is not like for weeks at a time or anything like that. This is for like a couple hours, generally speaking.
Right.
But like she's never like, oh, what if this person assaults me?
Yes.
In this way that like felt a little off to me. Like this character didn't seem that naive to me.
Well, that's what was interesting about this to me, because it felt like almost like a fairy tale, because like the idea is like rather than her constantly being like, oh, like what could happen, it's like I'm out to get experience, and then like literally the worst experience happens. Like almost as if like be careful what you wish for almost. And like there's a way in which like she enacts this, she is like this certain kind of like female archetype for all of these men. Like she nurses this sick German and then she is like this.
That's the weirdest scene. I kept waiting for them to reveal that he like had AIDS or something.
Yeah, because like she like
I needed that to like, I kept thinking that was gonna like be a bigger thing, because like this like German like cab driver like picks her up and like invites her to stay with him, and like then he gets really sick out of nowhere.
Yeah, he comes home and he's like falling down ill. Like yeah.
And not just like drunk, but like clearly like ill.
Yeah. And then she like nurses him back to health, and she like sleeps in the bed with him, and then she like leaves.
And he wakes up and he doesn't remember any of it.
Yeah.
But they don't sleep with each other or anything.
Right. But it was like, I'm taking care of this person. And then with that old man that like is running after her on the train, it's like my romantic ideal, my muse, like, please stay with me. And she's like, I can't. Like, and then when it's the person who sexually assaults her, it's like, she's like a victim essentially of this person. Yeah.
I will say, I'm going to give some good boy points to the Italian guy.
Oh yeah. I forgot. Yeah. I totally forgot about that whole thing. That also felt very like La Dolce Vita or something. It's like, oh, they're like departing Italians trying to get me into this gig. Yeah.
She ends up like hanging with this like Italian Lothario who like invites her back to his hotel room, and then she just goes to sleep, and she wakes up and he's like trying to kiss her, and she's like, go to sleep. And he's like, okay.
But also it's like, oh, we're going to this fancy party, like you should come with us. Like it felt very like La Dolce. And then it's like, well, are you staying anywhere? It's like, I'm just gonna stay up all night, so
but there's this constant like creeping dread. Like I found myself reading this section, and she keeps like, I mean there's like an element here where it feels like a little Freudian, where it's kind of like she keeps putting herself in these situations where she's tempted to cheat on her boyfriend. She's, trying to like seek out connection again, and she keeps like kind of has this repetition compulsion to like find men who remind her of some part of her boyfriend.
Also,
never.
Speaking of the Freud thing, in that scene where the Italian guy starts kissing her, she's dreaming that she's kissing a woman. And then she wakes up and it's the Italian guy and she's like, go away, essentially. And he's like, okay. So, yeah. Speaking of Freudian stuff, anyway. So, yeah.
Well, there's also something in that scene, too, where like people because like they keep getting separated and she keeps like having to like tell bouncers like, oh, I'm here with like this group. And she keeps like misquoting his name as like Antonia.
Yeah.
Or like Andrea. Yeah, she keeps like giving his name as like a feminine version of his name, which
yeah,
I don't quite know what's going on there, but there's something going on there.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, but I remember I keep reading these scenes where it's like, oh, she'll like be with this guy and he'll be like, hey, do you want to stay here? Like when she's in Amsterdam, there's like this guy who's like, hey, you just want to like stay here longer with me in my home?
Yeah.
And then, this thing with the Italian guy, this thing with this like German cab driver. And, each of these scenes, like, it feels like it gets like a little closer to like actual like consummation of the act. And, it's this thing where it's like both kind of like, oh, she's putting herself in situations where she kind of like maybe wants to like sleep with these people, but also is kind of putting herself in these situations where it's like, oh, she might just get assaulted.
Right.
Or like there's going to be some kind of, because even like when she does get assaulted, there's kind of an element where it's like there's miscommunication, because she tells this guy, like, I think I want to have sex with you. And he takes that as an invitation to have sex with her.
Yeah. Rather forcefully, too.
Rather forceful. Like it is assault. It is rape. But like there's a miscommunication that happens because her language skills.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not gonna say I don't want to like be like, oh, it's her fault or anything like that. That's not what I mean. But like she's trying to communicate one thing and he takes it in another way.
Yeah. Also, immediately afterwards, he like is like, I don't have enough money for the train. Like, which like is, it's one of those like just so details that I enjoyed, because it was like, and then she's just like, I'm not going to give him any money. And then she just gets on the bus.
She kind of leaves him behind.
Yeah. She just leaves him there. Rightfully so. But yeah, so.
Yeah, that part was kind of funny, actually. Yeah, very strange bit. I don't quite know what to make. Like, I feel like we've talked around it a lot, and I still don't quite know what's going on in the section. What like the broader point being made here is there's like a lot going on about like Orientalism, like sexualization of like Asian women.
Also, like I was saying, like the roles that she's playing for each one of these men as well. Yeah.
But there's also something about like kind of this, again, like Bildungsroman or Kunstroman like element where it's like, oh, she's like learning to express herself sexually, like learning how to express desire.
Yeah, we didn't even mention
have desire.
We didn't even mention her masturbation scene in this sequence as well, which is very important to her. So yeah.
Yeah. So there is a way in which the scene, this whole section, despite kind of having a certain like harrowing aspect, is also kind of this like very crucial moment in her development as a character.
Yeah.
And kind of is this moment where, she becomes, as our good friends at the TrueAnon podcast would put it, a little East meets West.
Yeah. And so, when she comes back, it's really interesting because the boyfriend like doesn't ask her about the trip, which she, I think also rightfully fixates on. So,
I really thought, and tell me what you think about this, Ben. I really thought she was going to get back and he was going to just be gone.
Yeah, I also thought that. Well, maybe not the same, but in a way, I was like, I'm like, not this again. I was just like, again, I'm not a big fan of this boyfriend character. Again, I think in a purposeful way on the author's point, but you come back and you're like, yeah, he's with his friends. He doesn't fucking care. And I think he kind of does care because he's like, I think he's trying in not asking her to kind of respect the privacy of her individual experience, I think is the way he would justify it. But at the same time, yeah, I was a bit like, yeah, exhausted. So
yeah, well, there's something about like this whole bit, this whole like arrangement of this trip where it like there is like an element in which like, yes, I think he is like very earnestly like trying to get her to see the world, learn to like spend time with herself, understand like kind of, I guess, like the Western like viewpoint or world. But there's also an element where it's like he's trying to get her out of his hair.
Yeah.
And, I think there's something complicated in this book about like, again, I don't think we're supposed to find him like a sympathetic character, but I don't think we're supposed to find him like evil.
Right. Yeah. He's rounded, as people like to say. So
yeah. And I think that, again, like the protagonist, Zhuang, she really does grow and develop in like a very interesting way, like over the course of the story, like largely through this relationship. There's a different, maybe not a version that would be worth writing, but there's a different version of the story where like she never meets this guy and she just like kind of muddles through this like year in London, like never really making any friends or doing anything.
Right.
And then she just goes back to China more or less like unchanged by her experience.
Yeah.
And this relationship is like a big catalyst for, change in herself in this, kind of classic Bildungsroman fashion. And I think that the ending also really implies that there is a level on which their relationship does change him too. Even if they end up not being really compatible in the long term.
Well, yeah, and I think that's implied by him going to Wales, where he feels a part of nature, and becoming the Buddha. Well, maybe not the Buddha,
again,
but
it's East meets West, baby.
Yeah,
we all got to become a little more Rush Hour with it. Here in the West, we're a little Chris Tucker. We're going to the island.
Do you remember that bit in Rush Hour where like they're separated and like Jackie Chan like eats some fried chicken and thinks of Chris Tucker?
Yes, of course I do.
Yeah, and I don't remember
I
don't remember what Chris Tucker does. He does something similarly like stereotypical where maybe he's watching like a kung fu movie and he remembers Jackie Chan. Like,
yeah, that's a certified Brett Ratner banger.
Yeah, Trump is personally pardoned Brett Ratner, so maybe we'll get another Rush Hour.
So we're gonna get a little more East meets West. But no, I mean, I think that Guo is like an interesting like person to be writing this book because like clearly they're a little East meets West. They're somewhat, again, they're a person who was born and raised in China, studied film in England. Now, like, from what I can tell, like primarily writes in English.
Yeah.
Writes, not adaptations, but kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? What we call the Ishmael book? Like interpretation, reinterpretation.
Yeah. I think a reinterpretation.
But you get what I mean. Like there's this way in which like she's carrying all these different cultural sort of inputs like into a new thing.
Yeah.
In this way that like I think is kind of the if there's an upside to globalization, it is the way in which like we all get to be a little East meets West. We all get to have a very Chinese time in our lives, baby. I don't know. I feel like as I get older, the more I see of the world, again, do you remember couple years ago when All Men Are Brothers was the kind of meme du jour.
People still, bust that out now and then. I feel like
I think that is an incredibly beautiful sentiment.
Yeah.
I think that, the way in which like human beings like do have this, I think actually like really great capacity to identify and to see like themselves in other cultures, to blend aspects of culture like across these divides that maybe at one point felt like geographically or ideologically like impassable. Like I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Obviously there's still, we still have to talk about like issues like Orientalism, racism, etc.
Nationalism. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's cool that like Zoomers with the broccoli haircuts like want to learn how to play mahjong. Like that's not inherently a bad thing.
Mahjong, a great game. So yeah,
a wonderful game.
Yeah.
I think that if there's something this book is saying, again, this feels like stupidly trite to say, but it's like, oh, we have things to like learn from each other. Even if like there's a lot that gets lost in translation and like there are these power imbalances, like the contact that can happen between people like from across these global divides like can actually be really beautiful and meaningful. It's not just alienation.
Yeah, and to your point earlier where you had said that there's like a lot of overlapping stuff going on, I feel like Guo really pulls it off because I feel like it would be quite easy to just pick one of these. And I think she managed just to combine a lot of, like you were saying, like cross-cultural communication, different values clashing and combining, different cultural references. There's a lot of stuff going on in here that's not easily reducible. And I think that's what makes it like a good book. So
yeah. Well, I think there's like a much more trite version of this book that you could write where either Zhuang either realizes that like, oh, the West sucks.
Yeah.
I'm going back to China. I'm going back to my like government work unit and I'm like done with the West is stupid and like, all glory to the Chinese Communist Party and the great helpsman. I think there's also like a probably even more trite, even stupider version of this book where she goes to London and it's like, you know what? China blows. I'm staying in the West. Like I'm going to like become completely like westernized. I'm going to like abandon my culture and like completely embrace like Western style individualism and capitalism and blah, blah, blah.
That reminds me, I found a book that I think is like that called Soul Mountain, which I really need to read. I think I sent it to you a while ago and you're like, this seems like one of those guys that was really pro West. And I was like, interesting. Anyway. Yeah. So,
but I think the fact that like Guo manages to, I think really powerfully portray the way in which like these like cultural contacts can be like painful and alienating, but ultimately be meaningful. And like, again, like Zhuang is the one who comes like out of this the winner. I think that like, if one of them comes like the ex-boyfriend maybe comes out happier because like he's able to embrace what he really wants in this way,
as opposed to like kind of denying himself, which I think is one of the things of his character we've been talking about.
Yeah, but ultimately like he's still like cut off, he's still like in denial about like his need for like human connection.
Yeah.
Whereas Zhuang like realizes that she like has greater ambitions than like what she's been told she should want or what she's been told she's capable of wanting. She realizes that she wants to be a writer or an artist, not just like her parents like shoe ambassador.
Along those lines, I found the bit where she goes back to Beijing and sees it becoming more westernized kind of fascinating. Or maybe it's not Beijing, it might just be her hometown. But like wherever she ends up is like more westernized. And she talks about how like her friends only talk about like money and like, her, like there's a Starbucks, I think, like, I don't know. I found that
she talks about the like knockoff brands they have, like Poma.
Which like,
Gay.
Again, it's a fascinating kind of look at the oncoming globalization, when this book was written.
Yeah. No, yeah, that part of this book is fascinating. There's a bit too where like she goes with her boyfriend to visit his family like for Christmas, and one of his like relatives is like, bloody hell, a billion people. That's how many you've got over there.
You're like, yeah, right. Yeah. Well, also, also, she's like, these are actually quite nice people. And as we said a little bit off the pod, I wondered why the boyfriend doesn't want to talk to them. And I think you pointed out that it's probably implied that they weren't really accepting of his homosexuality. So,
yeah. And I think there's again, kind of a gender thing there where it's like all his like male relatives are dead. Like it's only the women. I don't know. There's some stuff going on there that I didn't feel like I had enough time to quite unpack.
Yeah.
About kind of like the gender element of this book.
The whole thing smacks of gender. Yeah.
It does smack of gender indeed. But yeah, just I don't know. I found myself thinking a bit as I was reading this book. I found myself kind of thinking on why I decided to start studying Chinese a couple years ago. And, I think that decision kind of lined up with the start of the show to some degree. Like it was not super long before we started the show that I started learning. And I think, there's a bit where they get in an argument about how the boyfriend is kind of chauvinistic towards Chinese culture. And she's like, the Chinese invented paper so that 200 years later, Shakespeare could fucking write his plays.
Yeah, and that comes also like towards the end of the book where like
this is like when they're on the verge of breaking up.
But also like she's like almost achieved her like final form at that point too.
Yeah, like she's almost more fluent in English than he is at this point.
Yeah.
Like she like I feel like we really haven't talked about that part. The fact that like her English improves like steadily over the course of the book as she kind of becomes more independent and is like more able to like articulate her desires, her like what she wants out of this relationship, and how that clearly makes the boyfriend uncomfortable.
It's also very very skillfully done where right before she's like eloquent in English, like the only problem she has is like some phrase and clausal issues. Like it's very like the temperature is turned up very slowly in a way that I found impressive.
Well, there's a bit where this is the part I think I hated the boyfriend most, where he's like, I shouldn't have given you books. Like, you know, now all you do is just sit around and read and nitpick, and you become so bourgeois.
Yeah, to quote an old Johnism, a gun. Yeah, so I found myself thinking, I'm like, God, I hate this boyfriend character. So like,
Gen X people to the camps.
Yeah, Gen X people must be re-educated immediately.
Stephen Graham Jones is fine. The rest of them.
Yeah, Stephen Graham Jones gets a pass, but yeah. So.
The rest of them to the camps. But okay, I lost my train of thought there. Just
the English, the development of English, and then her like the way it is communicated over the course of the book.
Yeah, I don't feel like I was saying like why I started to learn Chinese. And, again, it's really interesting in 2026, in a time where I think that, I've been talking about how we're living in the Chinese century for like 2 years now, I feel like there's this way in which like the place of China in the world is like undeniable at this point, in a way that like when this book was written, I think like China's place in the world was a lot more ambiguous.
You're right.
Yeah. And the fact that like, oh yeah, this is like a culture that has existed for thousands of years, like as unbroken as like you could, call any human culture like over the course of like thousands of years. This is a country that like has roots like that go back that far. This is a country that has like 1 billion people who all speak the same language. Like, it's kind of crazy to like look back, really like less than 2 decades and to see how different the perception of China is, the self-perception of China is, and the way in which like I think language plays a role in that fact, the way that kind of like the West's like continued inability to like stabilize itself has something to do with that fact. Like I think there's a way in which like the kind of boyfriend kind of retreating into this pastoralist kind of fantasia at the end, where he just like lives in this cabin and like has his like plants. Like there's a way in which like it feels kind of like a synecdoche for like what the West wishes was possible to do. Like there's this desire to like withdraw from the world. Because...
What is that President Xi line about like it or not, the economy is the ocean in which you swim or something, which like is becoming more relevant than ever. I mean, talk about like consequences of globalization. Gas prices are currently like I'm paying like $20 more at the tank than I was 2 months ago because of globalization. Yeah, our mad king, our king went mad. Yeah, so
I mean, again, I feel like as much as I joke, like obviously I understand China is like a modern society with contradictions and problems the same as any other. But like when I think about, I feel like you and I have had this conversation where like I look at the Chinese system and I'm like, okay, well, but these are clearly people who are planning more than like 4 years in advance in a way that like no Western country seems to be able to.
Yeah, I mean, well, and just 10 years after 2008 was like, one belt, one road type stuff. So
no, I mean, I don't know. This book is very interesting to read in 2026. That's what I'm going to say. Yeah.
And the more you're talking about it, I feel like I kind of missed that stuff and I was a little bit more fixated on the relationship, which I don't think is...
Well, that stuff isn't necessarily there in the text. That's very much stuff I'm reading into it from 2026.
Right. And I think it's making it more interesting to me is what I was going to say, because I feel like there's a way in which you kind of see the relationship play itself out several times. And I think it's kind of meant to do that. But that led me getting a little impatient with it. But I think, like, again, this cultural context that you're pointing out is something that is making it more interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's a strange book because, like I said, I actually did not find the story itself to be particularly gripping.
Yeah.
I think the characters are decently well sketched. Not necessarily characters who I'm gonna like feel like I need to revisit over and over again. Like this isn't Anna Karenina, but there is something really fascinating here, and I think that Guo as an author is like pretty uniquely positioned to like write really interesting stuff about kind of Chinese Western interaction in this way that I find really interesting.
You know what I was going to bring up was I almost said this was her first book, which is incorrect. This is her first book in English. So I think that's interesting because as we were saying earlier, like no first books. And I almost was like, oh, this was a good first book. And actually, it's a good first book in English. So, yeah.
I also saw it was translated into 26 languages, which I find kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Like the idea of reading this like in French and like how would you like is she speaking broken French and then her French is getting better but it's supposed to be her English getting better? Like there's
that's
like there's layers there that like feel very weird.
Apparently I saw on Twitter recently that Tolkien said that people who translate Lord of the Rings should feel free to do puns And like apparently like one of the translations of Bilbo just means like bad guy or something like or something like that, like in
Bad
whatever
man.
yeah exactly, like in whatever language it is. So maybe they did something similar with this. I don't know. So
yeah, it just, again, it raises those like really interesting questions about like the nature of translation as an art form, and like how you communicate the stuff.
This is also
like,
why I felt like it was
these
interesting
boundaries.
seeing everybody dunk on the Ishmael rewrite, because I felt like they're like, yeah, sure, it's not Herman Melville. I wonder if she did something interesting. Oh, apparently, actually, I read a bad reads review of the Call Me Ishmael, and apparently someone was like, I did not enjoy the rape scene. So I wonder if like that, similar sort of playing with stuff that heavy topic. I don't know. So
okay, Ben, I'm gonna this might be a little off topic, but just since you brought up Tolkien there, just kind of in the spirit of like interesting translations, I looked up Chinese Lord of the Rings. So in Chinese, Lord of the Rings is typically referred to as Mojie, which translates directly to demonic ring.
Makes sense.
It's been translated twice by Yilin Press in 2013 and Zhu Shuiheng in 2001. Mordor is translated as Moduo, which translates to much sorcery or a great deal of sorcery. And then the Fellowship of the Ring is entitled Mojie Zaishen, which translates to reappearance of the demonic ring.
Nice.
The Two Towers is Chuangta, Qi Bing, or Qi Bing, which translates to strange soldiers of the Two Towers. And then
these are pretty I like how both of those are pretty plot descriptive. That's interesting.
Yeah. Return of the King is Wangjie Wudi, which is King is Unmatched. Which feels a little like anime, but you know.
Yeah,
translation is a weird game.
Aragorn is unmatched. So
yeah. I do just love that they made like I love the way that like sometimes like Chinese transliterations are just like, oh, you take two characters that sound this way, like cafe, which is coffee, like doesn't really, there's no pun or like direct transliteration there, but when they can find it like they did with Modua there, I'm like, oh, that's perfect.
Well, that also reminds me, wasn't there like a character in Story of the Stone whose like names was literally like the false Bao Yu? Like he was Bao Yu something, and like the pun was like not the real Bao Yu.
The Chinese love puns.
Yeah, any culture that likes puns is a good culture in my mind. So yeah.
But yeah.
Well, should we close out? I feel like we've covered everything. I feel like
we've been going for a bit here. I feel like we've been going for over an hour and a half at least. So yeah. I don't have too much more to say. Anything else you want to address before we kind of close it out?
I don't think so. I feel like this conversation has turned me around on the book a little bit. Not that I hated it, but I feel like I found myself getting a little exasperated with the relationship. But I think there's definitely more going on here than I initially surmised. So
cool. Well, listeners, thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation of Concise Chinese English Dictionary for Lovers. We'll be back in 2 weeks to discuss our final episode of the season, and that is going to be on Rakesfall by Vajra Chandrasekera.
And by then, Woke will be fully back. So.
Well, then, unfortunately, a brave man in Washington, D.C. tried to bring Woke back in a big way this last weekend, and like two brave men before him, he failed.
Yeah, he tried to get everybody in the White House to read Capital by Karl Marx, and it did not work. So
someday Woke will return. The king will be restored.
We wait and hope. Yeah, so
It will happen someday. He has to get lucky every day. We have to get lucky once.
it's true.
All right, listeners. Well, we'll talk to you soon. Until then, I've been John.
I've been Ben.
Semper Books.
Semper Books.
Thank you for listening to The Infinite Library. If you liked our show, we hope you'll subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the podcast app of your choice. It helps us a lot. If you want to follow us on social media, we can be found on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Infinite Library Pod. If you'd like to contact our team directly with episode ideas or feedback, email us at infinitelibrarypod@gmail.com. Our intro music is by Amos Legend in the Forest of Mayhem. Our outro music is by DJ Daggy Diggs, and our logo was created by Lars Noir.